One of my favorite people on the planet, a good friend, Pastor Craig Groeschel, joins us for a segment here with a brand new book, The Power to Change. This guy, man, one of the best leaders in America today. He leads one of the largest, if not the largest, church in America today and teaches leadership all over the world. And the power to change, people need the power to change. Welcome, Pastor.
Hey, Dave, it's great to be with you again, and it's a kind introduction, but I cannot barefoot water ski like you, so...
Not sure what that has to do with anything, but...
I don't know, but I don't care what it has to do. I just need to say that if people don't know that, Dave Ramsey can barefoot water ski.
And I can't practice jujitsu like you do, so there we go. So we're even. We're straight up even. I love it. Hey, man, you and I have been friends a long time, and I've observed and watched your leadership path and watched your growth. It's been incredible over the years.
Thank you.
The inside jacket of this new book, we've talked about all the pieces in the interior, what the book's about, the thesis of the book, over, coffee and hanging out with our wives. And, this subject is just something that's near and dear to both of our hearts. Few things in life are more frustrating than knowing you need to change, wanting to change, and trying to change, but not changing. Pastor and best-selling author Craig Groeschel knows what it's like to be caught in that demoralizing cycle. The Power to Change, Mastering the Habits that Matter Most. It comes out this week. Go ahead and get it right now. This is an absolute must. Craig is a regular speaker at EntreLeadership Summit, and there's a reason, and you're going to find out why as we spend time together here. So when it comes to mastering the habits, your subtitle here, which I love, a great subtitle, Mastering the Habits That Matter Most, what are one of the two of the personal habits that matter here?
Well, first, thanks for the compliments on the book. And I would say, the core message of this book really is what you do all the time, Dave, is you're helping people change kind of their identity and their financial habits and so much more than that. And so what's interesting is a lot of people talk about, what habits do we need? And I would start and say, before we look at what you want to do, take a step back and say, who do you want to become? And a lot of times people are trying to really change external behaviors, but if we're just changing external behaviors without changing our heart, the behaviors tend to go back to where they were. And so before we start with the do, what I like to do is try to start with the who and say, who do you want to become? Because if you think about it, what is it that drives our habits for better or for worse? It's typically our identity. I could say it this way, if you want to sound like Dr. Seuss, that you do what you do because of what you think of you. Our identity tends to determine what we do. And there's an interesting study, Dave, that I quote in the book that, and I don't know how they came up with this, it's way above my pay grade, but this one study shows that in any kind of situation, whenever you face a decision, some kind of potential confrontation or whatever, you subconsciously in a millisecond ask three questions that in your brain you ask some version of, what type of a person am I? What kind of a situation is this? And what does someone like me do in a situation like this? And we do it over and over and over and over again. So if your alarm goes off, what kind of person am I? I'm the type of person who hits snooze and stays in bed. Or I'm the type of person that jumps out of bed and attacks the day. So your identity drives your action. So before we look at the external habits, we start with the internal identity. And I would ask the reader, who do you want to become? Who do you want to become? And then to answer your question, based on who you want to become, I would say, what habit do you need to create? Or what habit do you need to break? We'll start with identity, and then that will drive our habits.
I am a night person.
Yep.
By biorhythm or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yes.
And yet, for the last 20-odd years, I've gone to bed at 9 o'clock and gotten up at 5.
Interesting.
Because I discovered that fresh in the morning, I can get an exercise regime in, prayer time in, time with my wife, set the foundation of my day, and I just figured out, I'm watching successful people do that. And so I am a successful person. I'm going to be a successful person. And so I'm going to do that. And I reset that. Now, I still have energy at night. I mean, that didn't stop happening. But I didn't try to go, okay, I'm going to do my workouts at night, because there's no chance I'm going to do that from a schedule standpoint. Right. There's always something else going on. Sharon and I are going out to dinner with you guys or something, or we're traveling to go speak somewhere. There's always something going on at night. And so I am not going to sit and read unless I'm on an airplane at night. I just don't. I'm generally on the go. So anyway, I just had to figure that out. I had to reset that. And that's kind of what you're talking about. You just identify who you are and where you go from there. And it's a little bit like those 3 questions. That's interesting research, because it's a little bit like you and I have taught in leadership to make sure that the leadership team knows what our principles and our values are.
Right, correct.
And then when something comes at us, we already know what we're going to do.
That's
because
exactly
we
right.
set it ahead of time with that value. We value this, and so when this situation comes, the decision is already made.
Correct. Right.
The only pain that's left is actually executing the decision. This person, we don't tolerate that kind of behavior. This person is fired. Now, we got to go fire them.
Right.
But they violated a value so extremely that ladies in the building don't feel safe because the way this guy's behaving. He's gone.
Right.
And we're not mad at him or something like that, but that decision's already made. We don't have to fret over the decision. The values made the decision. Our identity made the decision. That's the same thing you're talking about, right?
Yeah, 100%. And you've taught that in leadership well. And I've always admired that you're going to create a culture based on your values. And so we're the type of organization that celebrates this type of work, or that we're the type of organization that doesn't allow this kind of behavior. And that's the same thing we're going to do is in our mind is we're going to say, I'm the type of person who, this is who I want to become. And then when you know who that person is, let's say I look at you and let's say you say, okay, you get up early in the morning and you work out and you read. And I say, okay, Dave is successful and that's part of his story. So I want to adopt one of those mindsets. So my first one might be I get up early and I'm going to start there. And then once I get up early, that's going to reaffirm the identity that I am a successful and disciplined person. That I may take another one of your disciplines and I'm going to read my Bible in the morning. And that's going to reaffirm I'm a successful. And then over time, I'm not trying to be someone who gets up early and reads the Bible and works out. It's a part of my identity. So my identity drives my habits, and my good habits reinforce my identity. And then we're not trying to be something else. We're actually, this is who we are. And the fun thing is that it's really, a lot of times people get overwhelmed by change. Like I have to change all these things to get there. We talk about just doing it one small thing. You say baby steps, right?
Right.
You take this one baby step, followed by another, then you get the debt snowball. And this is similar to change as one small change at a time. And you start getting the cumulative exponential power of a totally transformed life.
Absolutely. You move 1 degree at a time. I mean,
1 degree at a time.
And you read 2 pages a day. And by the end of the year, you've read a bunch of pages, but everybody's all worried about the whole book. And so this incremental, constant rhythm of change, constant rhythm of application of the new discipline is more important than trying to swallow the whole frog at once. It's just, you can't get it done. Can't get it done. Craig Groeschel is my guest. He has a new book called The Power to Change. You need to read it immediately. Mastering the Habits That Matter Most. Now, some people watching or listening to our podcast, the EntreLeadership Podcast, don't know you have a very successful leadership podcast as well. I am a consumer of it. I listen to you on my walk or my drive to work or whatever I'm doing in the morning. It comes out, if I remember, Thursdays, one Thursday every month, right?
First Thursday every month.
Thursday every month.
If you listen to it, which I am humbled by, you would have heard yourself 2 times. You're one of the only 2-time guests on the podcast, and your leadership contribution, both personally and publicly, is made such a big difference in my life.
Well, somebody canceled, and you had to get somebody. So.
Call Dave. I think he's available.
Oh yeah, Dave will do it. Dave will do anything. All right, and I will for you. So but I was listening a couple of weeks ago, and you were talking about this book, and I loved the 8 habits to create this. The hard right was, the no snooze was really good. I like that too, because I am a no snooze, and I always have been. I actually wake up about 6 minutes before my alarm goes off almost every day, and I get up immediately. And I'm thankful that I can still do that. I can still get up. So that's good.
It's a good thing.
I do pre-decide a lot of things, so those were easy for me. I was just looking at it through my own eyes, user experience. But the hard right is a really good way to describe a little bit of what we were talking about a while ago, making a decision based on values. Talk about that one.
That's exactly right. Well, the principle we talked about in the podcast was choosing the hard right over the easy wrong. And you know this in your leadership that so often when you're faced with a situation, there's something that there's a little less resistance. There's something that appears easier. And generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, the harder option is usually the right thing. It might be hard to say no to temptation, or it might be hard to have a developmental conversation with someone. But the principle and the habit that I'm trying to create as a good servant leader is that anytime there's a situation when I know what the hard thing is, and if it's right, is to choose it and then to just let the results fall where they may. And what's interesting is usually the easy wrong may be easy in the moment, but over time, doing the easy thing when it's the wrong thing actually becomes really, really difficult. And so sometimes ripping the Band-Aid off or doing what's right in the moment may seem more difficult, but over time it actually becomes better.
So I had a theory as I was listening to that. I want to run it past you.
Yep.
My theory is that the more you make the hard decisions based on doing the right thing, the easier it gets. Mm-hmm. You build the muscle.
You do.
To do that.
You do. You do.
I mean, the thing that flashed through my mind when I heard you talking about it on the podcast was, I'm bombastic, wide open, and but tender-hearted in the middle of all that. And so early in my married life and early in my leadership life, I was just hard charging and blow on by and just leave muddy boots all over everything and never bothered to apologize. Apologizing for screwing up was very hard for me to say I'm sorry. Now I say it all the time because I've got a lot of reasons to be sorry all the time. You know, it's like I screw stuff up pretty regularly. So, I mean, I have built an I'm sorry muscle. I do that, but it was very difficult for me to learn to do that.
No, that's exactly right. Same thing with getting up early. It might have been more difficult for you, but after a while, your body adjusts, your mindsets adjust. When it comes to diet, it might be difficult. It was really difficult for me for years and years to say no to certain food. But after a while, I developed a taste for the ones that were a little bit, an appetite for what was a little healthier for me. And now it's easier to say no. I've built a muscle. And that's the perfect analogy. If you go to the gym and you're trying to curl 10 pounds, at first it's difficult. The motion seems awkward, but the more you do it, the more you get in a rhythm. And then it becomes a habit that you don't have to think about. And that's what we want to try to do is create multiple good, and neurologically, we're creating new neural pathways in our brain. So doing the right thing becomes easier over time. And the more we do it, the more it affirms our identity. And then like your story is a great example. What a lot of people don't know is like I met you when you had 2 radio stations. Yeah, I think that was all that you had. And people don't know the consistent behind the scenes, faithful, hard work, small right decision, small hard right decision by the next one, and compounding over 20 some odd, almost 30 years later, you've got a international impact. But that was the result of making lots of hard right decisions over the years when the easy wrong might have felt better at the time, but you wouldn't be impacting nearly the people you are otherwise.
The book is The Power to Change. And, change is doable. And if things aren't working, change is necessary. If things are going to get better, you have to change. You can't keep doing what you've been doing, expect a different result. That's the definition of insanity. So Craig Groeschel is our guest this segment. Be sure you pick this book up immediately. And if you stay tuned to EntreLeadership Summit and you come to our events, you're always going to see Pastor speaking from time to time. He's a regular with us. He and I have been friends for a long time for a lot of good reasons. He's one of the top speakers and teachers on leadership in America today, as well as one of the top pastors in America today. Love you, my brother. Thanks for hanging out with me.
Hey, thank you, and I look forward to hanging out with you in the evening again, although you always have more energy than I do in the evening. So thanks. Appreciate your friendship. Take care, Dave.
Be good, brother. The Power to Change is the book from Craig Groeschel. Hey, guys, you guys be sure you pick this book up immediately and anything else he writes. And hey, join him on his podcast, too. Again, I'm a consumer of it. You guys are here for leadership podcasts. You're here for learning. There's several of people that are friends of Craig's and mine that have podcasts. I listen to all of them, and I learn something from them all the time. So jump in there and pick all this up.